The Moonwell by Philip de la Sala. The smoke curled from the chimneys of the clustered houses like ghostly flowers reaching for the glow of the moon, coalescing to create a thin blanket that settled over the village. One by one, the illuminated windows went dark. The shadows gained ground with each extinguished candle, until one could not be sure if the cottages were barely visible or if the mind was only filling in what it could remember seeing only a few moments before. This is the sight that Tyluvian had witnessed every clear summer evening. He had not always been able to see it. A tall oak tree had blocked this particular view for many years until he had cut it down. "Firewood," he said. He gazed downwards to the village. Calyx Glade was an amiable enough town, considering its seclusion. It was not wildly abundant in resources as to make the village wealthy, though mountain streams and densely wooded areas provided bounty enough so that the people were not hungry, so far as they were willing and skilled enough to earn their keep. Or so they had told the rare traveler who had found themselves in this area. Tyluvian had gazed up at the moon. It ought to be a good draw this evening, he imagined. He laced his boots and swung his pack over his shoulders, the large cistern clattering gently against the buckles. Once his lantern was lit, he departed his cottage. He was warm in his thick clothing, despite the seasonal summer air gently cooling his face. He had done this enough times to know that warmer was better, in case he inadvertently walked through one of them. Oddly enough, it was this first leg of the journey that was the most dangerous for him. Predators were not unheard of. He had a rudimentary firearm gifted to him by the mayor of the village, but he had only fired it twice, for practice. Powder and shot were expensive, and that brief training was all they could afford him. He kept his lantern raised high. Shadows from tall grasses weaved along bare rock. One step farther from his bed. He toyed with the idea of turning back, of saying he fell ill and couldn't make the trek. He had never done that before. Once he had left, he always returned with his task completed. After an hour of hiking, he reached the willow. As always, he did not raise his arms to brush away the draping vines, and simply closed his eyes and let them drag across his face and body. When he reached the trunk, he raised one fist and gave it a little bump just to say hello. He sat on the roots for a brief spell and listened to his own breathing. He imagined the willow was his own sanctuary, just for him. He doubted any of the villagers had any idea that it was here. This was right on the edge of the part of the forest which was forbidden to all but him. Miles to go still, he thought to himself. He stood up and continued. The forbidden area felt distinctly older than the rest. It was as if each step took him much farther through time. The trees slowly became more gnarled and more strong. The underbrush slowly transitioned from grasses and brambles to thick vines and twisting stems holding great leaves the size of wagon wheels. There was no path. He was the only one to walk these woods and knew the area well enough so that he hardly needed his lantern. Despite that, he stopped dead in his tracks. The cool summer air turned frigid. The heady scent of dirt and plant and loam gave way to an acrid stench that burned his nostrils. He held his breath. He couldn't see anything, but he knew to stand still until it passed. A whoosh like wind, and the summer air had kissed his cheeks once again. He resolved to wear a scarf the next time and continued. More walking into the dead of night. At some point his reluctance to proceed was replaced with his eagerness to finish his task, and so his pace quickened. He soon reached his destination. It was a clearing, empty save for a simple stone well. He put down his heavy pack and fastened the cistern to the rope. The moonlight shone down the well, despite being behind a cloud at the moment, 30 or 40 feet, and then the rope went slack, and a faint splash was heard. He drew up the rope. The cistern was filled with water, which shimmered with a pearl-like film. It was a good draw after all. He fastened the lid and headed home. The return journey carried with it the promise of a bed, but at the cost of the weight of the water. He couldn't decide if one made up for the other. A sharp knock roused Tyluvian from his sleep. He heard the creak of the door hinges before a voice called out,
"Good morning, Ty. Sleep well?"
Tyluvian's feet swung out of bed, his head protesting at the sudden change in elevation.
"Hello, Mayor Burnsfell,"
he replied.
"Sorry, I had departed later than usual last night."
"Oh, certainly. No worries at all,"
replied Burnsfell.
"I noticed that you hadn't left the cistern in town, so I figured I'd stop by to pick it up for you." "Goodness, is that hill getting steeper? It really takes it out of you during these humid summer days. It's going to be a scorcher today."
Burnsfell blotted a handkerchief on his neck.
"Was it a good draw last night?"
"Yes, it was,"
replied Tyluvian.
"Ah, that's great to hear. I noticed you didn't go the night previous, which is, of course, perfectly fine. You deserve a good night's sleep every now and again as well."
Burnsfell entered the cabin and picked up the cistern. He undid the latch and let out a whistle.
"Ah, yes, a good draw indeed. Quite silvery. Say, you don't mind if I take a small sample before heading back?"
"I'd really prefer you didn't."
Tyluvian began, before the mayor lifted the cistern to his lips and took a small swig. The mayor's body immediately relaxed, and he let out a long sigh, his eyes briefly taking the silver appearance of the water. Tyluvian grimaced and held his breath as the acrid stench reached his nostrils. He tucked his face into his shirt. The mayor let out a low whistle and shook his head.
"Yes, everyone will be happy with this." "Oh, Ty, I'm sorry, my lad. Did even that small sample bother you?" "I apologize. I thought it wouldn't trigger that reaction of yours."
"It's fine,"
said Tyluvian.
"Really, any amount will cause it."
"Is that so? What a shame." "Well, at least you're able to travel to the Moonwell at all without being torn to shreds. Most of us will never see it. Not that we'd have reason to if you're still making the journey for us. Ah, but here, this is for you,"
he said with a smile, and he laid a parcel on the table.
"Bread, jam, and a bit of porridge the missus cooked up this morning. You might want to warm it back up, but it was delicious when it was straight from the pot. The berries this time of year are wonderful. Feel free to stop by later as well. I think she said she's making a stew. I'd better get this back to the others. They're eager for a nip since it's been 2 days now."
He swung the cistern over his shoulder.
"Oh, and Ty, we really do appreciate that you do this for us, truly. I know I say this often, but were you not here to help out, why, I don't know how we'd manage it all. Your midnight walks are a blessing to the whole village. I want you to remember that."
Tyluvian sat under the willow tree for a while longer than normal that night. The chartreuse dance of the fireflies had an almost hypnotic quality. He did not like to linger, as sleep has silent footsteps, and the roots of the willow made for a poor mattress. He did not want Burnsfell to note in that cheery tone that he had skipped another draw as well. He stood up and brushed the dirt and leaves off of him and resumed his journey. As he made his way to the edge of the forest proper, he heard something approach. Something large. He froze, one hand sealing his lantern, the other reaching for the firearm he kept dangling from his belt. He prayed that the powder and shot were loaded properly. He listened with his entire being. His heart was in his throat, and his breath was nowhere to be found. He saw a light. It was a person, and he was in their path. He was no woodsman who had a chance to sneak away, especially with all of the underbrush surrounding him. He had a pistol. That had to be good enough. He uncovered his light. He said in a strangled voice.
"Hey!"
The light shot towards him, and he heard an
"Oh!"
from the darkness. It was a brief moment before they were both standing in the light. Before him stood a middle-aged man, perhaps 30 or 40 years older than Tyluvian. He looked every picture of a woodsman himself. Worn, dirty clothes, a pack and walking stick, the white in his beard and hair about to win a decisive victory against the black.
"Oh, hello. I apologize. I truly did not expect to see anyone else out here. Are you lost?
No. Are you?
Asked Tyluvian, still very unsure of what to make of this encounter. He could not decide if he would have rather met a mountain lion or a man.
Oh, well, not exactly. I can't claim to be familiar with the area, but seeing as how this is where I intended to be, I can't truly call myself lost either,
said the man, who was beginning to visibly relax.
Apologies again for my rudeness. This is certainly an odd chance encounter. My name is Varsk.
Tyluvian.
He responded.
A pleasure, Tyluvian, and please accept a third apology. I am cursed with the burden of curiosity, made even more unbearable by the fact that I've been traveling for some time with no one to speak to. What in the hells are you doing out here exactly?
It was at this moment that Tyluvian had recognized that he had, in fact, never actually directly spoken to anyone from outside of the village. He had seen them across the tavern, been told that traders were coming with hard-to-acquire goods, but this was a rare occurrence in its own right, and he never had cause to speak to them directly himself.
I'm just doing my job,
he said.
Well, can't fault for a cryptic answer to a stranger in the middle of the night in the middle of nowhere. But the word job implies employer, directed tasks, wages gained from the sweat of one's brow, and is not something that you do for your own sake alone. A squirrel may gather nuts, but one would hardly call it a job, unless there was an agreement with another woodland creature. A boss squirrel, if you will. So, this leads to the next question. Do you live alone out here?
No,
said Tyluvian.
There's a village nearby, Calyx Glade.
Truly?
Said Varsk.
Perhaps my maps are outdated or superficial, or both. I was not aware of any villages in the area. I could have saved myself at least one night of gumming down tack for supper. Take everything in moderation, I say, and that includes fresh air,
he said with a laugh.
But my interrogation ends there. Let me return the favor. I am Varsk, as mentioned, and I am many things. Adventurer, explorer, academic, treasure hunter, and banisher of mystery.
He took a small bow with a flourish of his hand.
My current mission is thus. Add my testimony to the growing chorus of doubters, or verify, document, and marvel at a location of mythic significance, thereby exalting both its name and my own. You wouldn't happen to be familiar with any such locations nearby, would you? Would save me quite a bit of trouble.
Tyluvian paused.
You talk a lot, considering it's the middle of the night.
Varsk chuckled.
Indeed I do. I suggest you look into a particularly potent elixir called coffee should you seek to pursue midnight excursions. Please accept my final apology and my farewell. A pleasure, Tyluvian. Good luck with your job.
Varsk turned and headed towards the forbidden area of the forest.
Wait,
said Tyluvian, surprising himself.
I wouldn't go that way if I were you.
Oh?
Varsk said, stopping.
Why is that?
There's things in there,
said Tyluvian.
It's not safe.
My line of work rarely is,
said Varsk.
You accept quite a bit of danger as a first-hand academic of my ilk anyway. I've seen worse than a rough patch of forest, but I'm also not foolish enough to ignore the warnings of a local. What's in there?
Tyluvian could no longer play coy. He resolved to be honest if this seemingly well-intentioned man's life was on the line.
I don't really know myself. I've never seen them. I can't, I don't think. But the people in my village can. And the things in there can see them as well. And they kill them when they do. They maul them like wild animals. They'll hunt you too if you go in there. Whatever you're after isn't worth your life.
Varska's cheery countenance had become focused as he listened to Tyluvian. When he was finished, a small smile crept onto his lips, but it was his eyes that blazed with triumph.
What serendipitous fortune has finally smiled upon me after all these years?
He said. He took a deep breath and spoke very slowly.
Tyluvian, is there a clearing with a stone well in this forest?
Tyluvian's stomach dropped. He felt the weight of his entire life in that moment. The entire village relied on the Moonwell, save for him anyway. But he relied on the village. He couldn't live on his own in the wilderness. His fate, and the fates of all he had ever known, had hung in the balance of his next word. He could not look away from the light in Varsik's eyes. He had never seen anything like it. Varsk already knew.
Yes.
Take me there, please.
No.
Varsik's expression did not change in the slightest.
Then this is farewell. Thank you for everything, Tyluvian. This is the greatest night of my life.
He once again departed,
Wait, please.
said Tyluvian, but Varsk did not turn, and only waved a hand in response. Tyluvian felt for the firearm. He gripped it and raised his elbow slightly. That was as far as it went. He rushed to Varsk's side.
Just wait a moment. Who are you, and what do you want with the well?
Now look who's talking too much in the middle of the night,
said Varsk, still walking.
I already told you both of those things.
Damn it all, wait.
Shouted Tyluvian.
I might be willing to show you where it is if you just stop and tell me what the hell is going on.
The man did stop, and he turned to face Tyluvian. His face had lost its triumphant determination and was replaced with a mixture of surprise and confusion.
Yes, I can do that. Do as you will, but let's just talk. Tell me what you know. You're the one with first-hand experience here.
He sat on a log. Tyluvian did the same. He began to speak.
I'm from Calyx Glade, in that village I mentioned before. We're very remote, almost entirely self-sufficient. We get maybe 1 or 2 visitors a year, mainly bringing things like raw metal or the like that can't be found out here. You are the first person I've spoken to who is not from the village. I don't know if what I'm about to tell you is meant to be a secret or not. I was never told not to talk to an outsider about it. But I do at least know that our village isn't like anywhere else. If someone drinks water from the Moonwell, they become very strong and healthy. There are people who claim to be over a century old, but they look even younger than you. One swig and they don't really need to eat for a whole day or so. None of them have ever known a single day of sickness. They say it tastes like pouring life itself down your throat. Not me, though. The first time I drank the water as a child, I nearly died. No one has ever had that reaction before. I can't even stand to be around anyone when they drink it. It feels as though my eyes, mouth, and nose are all on fire, like I just stuck my head in a burning oven. I have to live separately from everyone else. The whole village is off limits to me when they're passing around the cistern. I don't mind, though, really. I told you before, there's things around the well that I can't see, and they don't seem to be able to see me either. I can feel them when they're close, though, and smell them too. It smells like lye and burning hair, I guess. And it feels like a sudden cold wind, no matter how warm it actually is. I have no idea what they're supposed to look like, and no one is really willing to talk about them too much. But they do try to kill anyone who goes in that forest, except for me. So I take these night walks to the Moonwell and draw the water for the village. And they give me food and built me a cabin. That's the job I mentioned before as well. I have to take care of myself when I get sick or hurt, since they don't really know how to manage those things, but other than that, it's not a bad life, and I don't want to lose it. So if you can tell me what you intend on doing with the well in a bit more straightforward manner, I might be willing to show it to you, because I don't want your death on my conscience either.
Varsk paused for several breaths.
Tyluvian, this is going to be a very big night for both of us,
he said solemnly, looking directly into his eyes.
Are you sure you want to hear what I have to say?
Tyluvian did not hesitate for a moment.
Yes, I thought I knew what was going on, but after talking to you, I feel as though I know absolutely nothing about my life.
Varsk took a deep breath.
Okay. I believe every word you have told me except for the first thing. You are not from Calyx Glade.
What? Of course I am. I literally have known nothing else.
No, you're not.
Varska's eyes looked straight into Tyluvian's. His hand grasped his knee tightly.
Keep breathing. Don't forget to breathe. Everyone you've ever known are not what they seem. You're not the special one here. You're just like everyone else. The people in the village, they're all the special ones.
Tyluvian blinked and let out a short, derisive laugh.
Ah, I see now. You really are insane. You're joking.
Ty, do I look like I'm joking?
No, but that just means you're insane then. Maybe that coffee you mentioned has altered your mind somehow.
Ty,
Don't call me Ty.
Tyluvian, let me say my piece. You may feel as you wish when I'm done. I am very certain I am correct, and I am certain that your life is being wasted here. Consider this repayment for the kindness you showed for my own well-being earlier. Let me speak, please.
Varsk began to speak with the practiced pace of a tenured professor. He spoke of the Moonwell, of its supernatural properties, of how, in ages past, spirit-like beings were drawn to it like moths to a flame. He spoke of a diaspora of these beings into the day-like and the night-like spirits, of betrayal, of the jealously guarded and the insistent. The lecture was filled with caveats and speculations, but Tyluvian hardly listened all the same. His thoughts were sinking like quicksand, faster and faster, the more he struggled against them.
And so that's where you come in,
Varsk said. Tyluvian's attention snapped back to him.
You are the bridge that the day-like spirits need to access the well. The night-like spirits will not allow them to approach, but you can. The night-like spirits cannot see you as you cannot see them. This is because you're not a spirit at all. You are a human, as I am, as most are.
No, I don't believe you,
said Tyluvian, wishing his voice sounded more confident.
I understand. This is all you've known. This will be painful, but I will help you see. A surgeon's knife brings both pain and the promise of life. Ask your questions and believe what you will.
Tyluvian sat, hunched, hand covering his mouth, his eyes firmly locked on the ground.
I think you're just messing with me. This is fun for you.
Solving mysteries is my life's work, and I am on the cusp of the grandest one of all. I stand to gain nothing by spending my time deceiving someone I just met while standing on the doorstep of decades of research.
Well, then you do stand to gain something. All this talk of spirits is just a trick to convince me to show you where the well is.
Varsk replied with a soft smile.
Tyluvian, the law of nature is to follow the path of least resistance. A river would not cut through a rock when it can flow around it. A hungry animal would not pass on a meal in hopes of finding one more palatable. I can think of 1,000 little lies to convince you to show me the well that would not involve upending your entire world in the process. If all I wanted was to go to the well, we could be on our way already. I'm doing this for your benefit alone, I promise you.
Tyluvian felt a bit of anger rising in him. His eyes met Varsk's.
I have parents. They're asleep in the village right now.
You may indeed have parents who are alive,
said Varsk.
But I assure you, the ones who claim to be so aren't your biological parents, despite whatever role they had played in your upbringing.
This is insane. I'm going home,
he said, rising from the log.
I don't believe you. I won't show you the well. I won't go there tonight at all. The village can skip a day every now and again. I'll say I got sick. Go find it yourself if you want. I won't even look for what's left of your corpse.
Tyluvian, please. It's too late. I've already planted the seeds of truth. There's no going back now. You'll spend the rest of your days looking for proof to disprove me, and you will find none. Who knows what they'll do if you confront them? I don't want to wonder what your fate will be myself. Please, sit down. We need to finish what we started. I have more to say.
Tyluvian did not sit.
Say your piece, then.
Thank you. Now then, tell me, at what age did they tell you that you first drank the water and had such a reaction?
Normally around 5 years of age is when one takes their first drink.
And you don't remember this?
No, of course not.
I thought not. I honestly don't think your lips have ever touched it at all. Now, tell me this. At what age did you start making this journey?
I don't recall. I was a child, though. Maybe around 10 years old.
How did you know where the well was in the first place?
I was shown the well during the day until I knew the way myself.
Were you ever shown the well at night?
No, I don't think so. It would have been too dangerous for anyone else from the village to enter at night. There was a huge festival the first time I came back from a nighttime journey.
I thought as much. So answer me this if you can. How did they know that you are invisible to the night-like spirits? Why were they certain they were not sending a 10-year-old boy off to certain death?
Tyluvian's breath caught in his chest.
I don't know.
I do. Because they knew you'd be safe because you're not one of them. They never gave you any explanation as to what those creatures in the forest are, because doing so could raise questions. Better to cover those cracks with flattery and a sense of responsibility and importance, especially starting at a young age.
But wait, hang on,
said Tyluvian.
Why can I see the people in the village, the day-like, but not the night-like?
Because in our own way, humans are also day-like spirits.
Varsk said with a shrug.
We're much closer to them than we are to things that go bump in the night after all. We are awake during the day, and we sometimes fear the dark. I have never heard of anyone who fears sunlight in the same way.
Tyluvian shook his head.
No, stop. Don't say anything else. Your story is too perfect. You've got the silver tongue, that much is evident. And you're using it to convince me of this farce. I think this is a fabrication from beginning to end.
It is very understandable for you to distrust me. But consider this. I knew of the well and of its significance long before you met me. You were the one to try to stop me from finding it, even before you mentioned anything of significance about it. Would it not stand to reason then that I, someone who knew of the well already, has some information that you, a person who has admitted that they know little about the well itself, did not? Further, when would I have had the opportunity to cook up this lie? I know many people, and of them I am one of the most clever. But if you are suggesting that I created this tale in the time it took for you to tell yours, well, even that is too ambitious for me. Please continue to question my reasoning if you see fit. I want to remind you, you are perfectly free to walk away at any time, and we may never see each other again. I will become nothing more than an odd, nagging dream. Please hear me out before you do so. I beg of you.
Tylovian didn't remember sitting back down on the log, but he found himself rubbing his fingers on a mushroom, tracing the gills absent-mindedly.
When did you start to figure this out?
I had an idea that something was amiss when you told me about the village. I have studied this area extensively. It is absolutely impossible that there could be a village I was not aware of. There are no maps or records that mention Calyx Glade, and yet here you are, a healthy and provisioned young man.
We did get visitors sometimes.
Is that what it seemed like? You said yourself that you never spoke to any of them. I really do believe I am the first human you have ever spoken to.
A silence.
When did you become so sure?
During your explanation. Listen, I am loath to dispel magic when I find it. Believe me, there is real magic in this world. But it's a bit more complicated than simply drinking water and living centuries. That sort of thing is reserved for otherworldly beings, not for mere humans. We simply thrive on the stories of such. Another point of evidence. You were never told to keep this a secret. Simply put, they never imagined you'd have anyone to tell at all. Our encounter was never part of the plan. You were simply meant to walk back and forth, over and over, until the end of your days, making life as easy as possible for them.
Another silence. Tylovian was surprised at how evenly his voice and hands were as he said,
How did they get me? How did I end up here?
I don't know. I only expected to find the well. To find this ancient feud still going on after centuries is extremely unexpected, though it pales in comparison to what you're going through, I imagine. Perhaps you're just the successor to a long line of folks who have met similar fates.
They both sat for a time, neither saying anything. Tylovian was tearing the mushroom to pieces in his hands. Varsk was looking at their two lanterns sitting side by side on the ground. Tylovian was the one to break the silence.
I understand what you're saying. I can't find any fault in it. I've always suspected that my situation is a bit unusual. My head believes you, but my heart does not. These people are all I've ever known, all I ever expected to know. I knew I would never leave the village since I'm the only one who can draw from the well. And I was fine with that, because I cared about them. I was happy to do this for them. It felt good to do something that no one else could do, and I thought they appreciated me as well. But now you're saying it was all a lie?
Varsk sighed.
I can't answer that, and I don't think you'll ever have the answer either. Your parents in the village may well have loved you as their own. Your friends and neighbors may have had genuinely warm feelings for you. But I am certain that all of this was based on manipulation. They were all willing to use you, likely for your entire life. But I must confess there is one other slight mistruth I have spoken to you this night. Earlier I said that I believed every word you said except that you're from Calyx Glade. That's not completely true. I also don't believe you when you said you have enjoyed the life you've had here and don't wish to lose it. Can you tell me with all honesty that you never wished for more from life than to walk in the woods alone in the dark? Even if you had never met me and never learned the truth, was this really enough for you? Can you envision yourself an old man, knees too worn down to hold yourself up, looking back on your life and being satisfied enough to wish to live it again after you pass?
A pause the length of a heartbeat.
No, but they need me.
My boy, they trained you from childhood to be used as a beast of burden.
I know, I see that now. But you said yourself there might have been some genuine caring there too. And it just feels right if I can return that feeling by doing this for them.
Varska's mouth was left agape.
Gods above, your heart is too pure for this world.
He shook his head.
You mean to tell me that you would live a life of burden on the chance that those who raised you in lies may also appreciate you for what you've done?
When you put it like that, it sounds foolish, but yes.
That would be because it is foolish.
Then I am a fool. I told you, my heart and my head are not on speaking terms at the moment.
Evidently not,
he said.
But do you want to know what I think?
You seem the type to tell people what you think, whether they want to hear it or not, so sure, I may as well agree.
Varsk laughed.
Now there's a little spark. That's good to see. To be honest, I wondered if you would want to raise the whole village to the ground when you learnt the truth, so it's certainly the more preferable outcome to find that you're still feeling obligated to them. But even that is too far a pendulum swing in the other direction, in my humble opinion. But we can use that heart of yours for some good here, I think. You don't strike me as the kind of person who would want someone they love to live a life they would regret for any reason, least of all out of a feeling of obligation. So, tell me, why don't you love yourself enough to stop yourself from living that same life?
Don't turn this around on me. I love myself, because I do this for them.
No, my boy, love can never condemn a life in this manner. This can only come from a lack of love, a lack of the recognition of inherent value. There is room for selflessness. There is room for self-sacrifice. But it must be freely given, not done out of obligation. There must be a balance between the giving and the receiving of all things. Too much giving, and you will wring yourself dry. You become the old man with broken knees. Too much receiving, and you add to the inequity and injustice of the world. You become the overtaxing lord, living luxuriously as his subjects starve. It is the charge of each of us to find this balance in our own lives. This cannot be done if you do not recognize your own value and the value of others simultaneously. I don't know how you came to be here or from where, but what I do know is that all of history, all of the marriages and heartbreaks, all of the near-death experiences and chance encounters of your ancestors have conspired to result in your creation. One farmhand fails to muster up the courage to ask the girl to dance. Poof! You're not here. A woman takes extra care to extinguish a candle that would otherwise burn her house down. Poof! You're not here. How many candles do you think needed to be properly extinguished for you to become possible? How many candles needed to be left burning? As it turns out, we are witnessing the exactly correct number of both. You are the expression of an unbroken chain that stretches back to the very beginning of life itself. You are nothing short of a miracle by merely existing. Us speaking now, even if we had nothing to discuss other than the weather, is a miracle upon a miracle. Life is for the living, Tyluvian. Are you prepared to look at all of that and say, no thank you, just walking in the dark alone is enough for me?
I don't know how to respond to you sometimes.
You typically go with yes or no, in my experience.
Then, no. I guess I'm not ready to say that I'm fine with just walking in the dark.
Varsk stood up and stretched.
Then there's your answer.
But that's not an answer. What am I supposed to do?
Just leave. Don't go back. You can travel with me for a bit, if you'd like. Not forever, mind you, but I can show you to a real town. Not one filled with spirits. Figure out what you'd like to do from there.
Tyluvian was still sitting on the log.
I can't just leave.
Sure you can,
said Varsk. He reached out a hand.
Your life is a miracle, remember? Don't waste a miracle on obligation to those who don't deserve it anyway. Love others as much as you can, and don't forget to love yourself as well.
Tyluvian took his hand. They headed towards the Moonwell. The Moonwell stood in the clearing exactly as it had for centuries past, and will for centuries yet to come. When it was in sight, Varsk wordlessly placed a hand on Tyluvian's shoulder. They stood still. The golden light of their lanterns combined with the silvery glow of the moonlight to seemingly bring the Moonwell forth into existence. Varsk approached first, methodically examining every stone.
Is this what you were looking for, then?
Tyluvian asked.
Oh, yes, beyond a shadow of a doubt.
How are you so certain?
I just know. We often require proof in order to feel as though we know something. But true knowing does not require proof, for proof may be overturned. And further, it is not belief, for belief allows for the possibility for doubt. True knowing is closer to something felt in the heart than in the head. But I came prepared, and I have both true knowing and proof. Look here,
he said, pointing at some faint markings on some particularly worn stones.
Evidence? Language?
I can barely see anything. What does it say?
I have no idea, and I doubt we ever will.
Varsk said with a chuckle. He stood up.
Tylovian, would you do me a great honor and draw from this well one last time?
The splash of the cistern echoed like the final sigh before slumber. The water rippled slightly. It was a good draw. Varsk looked closely at the water, swirled the cistern in his hands, and, before Tyluvian could say anything, raised it to his lips and took a drink. Nothing had happened. Varsk let out a contented sigh.
Gods above, that is refreshing. All of that walking and talking had caused a great thirst. Here you must be thirsty as well. It's much cooler and fresher than what's been sloshing around in our water skins.
Tyluvian took the cistern.
Are you sure?
It's not a question of if I'm sure. It's a question of if you are.
Tyluvian took a drink of the freshest, coolest water he had ever tasted. Thank you for listening.